The woman discovered a dozen of same selves in her husband's secret room. They shared the same body and fragmented memories. What secret had her husband hidden? Why had he made so many wives? Welcome to the latest Japanese sci-fi film, Inconvenient Memories, unveiling a story told in the name of love. The story is set in the year 2200. With the advancement of science and technology, humanity has moved to the cosmos. The female protagonist, Mayumi, is a famous ceramic artist. She lives in an upscale residence with her husband, Naoki, and they have a happy life. However, recently, Mayumi always has hallucinations. She sees large patches of crimson blood and visions of her own death. Fortunately, the couple has a habit of seeing a psychologist. They put on their devices and entered the metaspace. In fact, Mayumi does not like this treatment. The metaspace feels so real that she can tell the reality from the virtual. Mayumi truthfully explained her recent discomfort to the doctor. She always feels fear, accompanied by symptoms like tinnitus, headaches, and difficulty breathing. The doctor diagnosed that Mayumi might be suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder. Adding to that her pre-existing amnesia, the combination is bound to cause anxiety. Mayumi's amnesia stems from a tsunami that struck Earth 4 years ago. She was swept away by the waves. Mayumi got lucky to survive, but she lost her previous memories. Mayumi wants to regain her lost memories, but Naoki and the doctor repeatedly emphasize that she should look forward and focus on the future. Mayumi's husband, Naoki Saito, is the founder of a robotics company. He is also one of the first people to move to space. Naoki Saito advocates treating Earth as a national park. People can visit to relax and unwind, but they should not stay long to avoid harming the environment and depleting resources. This is beneficial for both Earth and humanity. Naoki believes that with constant technological advancement, thousands of years to now, humanity will inevitably find ways to solve environmental issues and back to their home of Earth. In fact, their quality of life has not declined since moving to space. The tomatoes in Mayumi's garden ripen in just 3 days. She is assisted by a smart robot named Kiku in completing household chores, cooking like playing a game. She just needs to follow the tips step by step. Such a lifestyle is healthy and efficient. Naoki is very gentle with Mayumi, so he often recounts their love story to help her fill in the gaps in her memory. She always writes them down on sticky notes, hoping to fill in her memory gaps. Moreover, Mayumi wants to return to Earth to take a look, as it was where she once lived. But Naoki does not want Mayumi to go back, because her health condition is not good. Saying nothing, Earth is in ruins nowadays. It is not what before it is. He suggested that they could use the metaspace to show Mayumi their former home, but now is not the right time. Mayumi stared blankly at Earth, as a flood of memories from the past provoking her. On a rainy afternoon, Naoki was traveling in Thailand and accidentally bruised into Mayumi's pottery shop. While seeking shelter from the rain, he fell in love with the beautiful girl. The scene shifts back to the present, where Mayumi is sitting in front of a mirror, combing her hair. Naoki sipped a glass of whiskey, and he prepared to rest. Mayumi couldn't help but complain about why he didn't pour her a glass. Naoki casually replied, "I thought you wouldn't want to drink."
私のことなら何でも知ってるみたいな言い方。私以上に。
Naoki's tone suddenly turned somber. "I know my wife better than anyone, so I know you are not Mayumi." Then he stabbed toward her with a knife. Mayumi clutched her neck and instantly woke up. Her husband was sleeping peacefully beside her, an obvious contrast to the scene in her dream. The dream made Mayumi feel confused inside. She entered the metaspace to talk to the doctor. The doctor believed it was just a dream. Initially, she had fallen into a coma after the tsunami. Medically speaking, she should not have regained consciousness, because Mr. Naoki would not give up. He kept vigil by her bedside day and night. He waited for a miracle. Mr. Naoki would never harm you. Mayumi did not want to think irrationally, but those terrifying hallucinations always attacked her heart. Mayumi felt guilty for her husband's care, so she apologized initiatively. Mayumi came straight to the point that she went to the metaspace last night to avoid overthinking. Mayumi focused intently on her pottery. She saw the ceramic plates on the shelf, and some memories recalled by her. At that time, a troublesome customer disrupted the pottery shop, but Naoki arrived just in time. He punched the rowdy customer down, but Naoki suddenly became violent. Mayumi felt scared and quickly stepped in to stop him. Mayumi helped Naoki tend to his wounds. At the same time, she hoped he wouldn't misuse violence. In fact, Naoki is prone to losing control due to the influence of his father's domestic abuse. Naoki's body was covered in cigar burns from his father. After learning the truth, Mayumi felt deeply pained for Naoki. Mayumi couldn't bring herself to blame him. At that moment, Mayumi dug out a record from the box. Debussy's Clair de Lune echoed through the room. The music evoked memories for Naoki. This was the piece he loved most before Mayumi's amnesia. Suddenly, an idea striking him, Naoki planned to take his wife to see the real moonlight. Naoki brought Mayumi to the behind of airlock and locked her inside. Mayumi struggled to escape, but Naoki stepped forward and slashed her neck. Mayumi covered her wound alarmedly and realized that what was flowing out wasn't blood. Naoki extracted a chip from her neck. He instructed Kiku to dispose of this defective product. It turned out that the real Mayumi was already dead. This was merely a substitute good by the company. The psychologist in the metaspace was actually Mayumi's creator. He was also a memory transplant expert. From their conversation, it became clear that Naoki had dealt with many defective products. He only wanted the duplicact of his wife to have memories from a specific stage, but this Mayumi remembered what she shouldn't have. Clair de Lune. That's why Naoki decided to scrap her. He requested the doctor to create another robot. This time, he chose the version of the couple shortly after their honeymoon. Then he ordered the removal of Mayumi's memories after that point, as the honeymoon was when they loved each other the most. The doctor awkwardly expressed that he could not guarantee that the next Mayumi would believe the story of her amnesia after the tsunami. Naoki anticipated this situation, so this time, he planned to be upfront about her being a robot. Soon after, the new Mayumi was delivered, and she had just regained consciousness. Mayumi's memories were stuck 5 years ago, right after their honeymoon. That day, they had done a memory backup together. Now, Naoki immediately told her that she had died tragically after the backup. He had someone create a robotic body to store her memories. Now, it had been 5 years later. During this time, Mayumi deeply loved her husband, and had no doubts about Naoki's words. However, learning that she had died was not easy for Mayumi to accept. To make Mayumi happy, Naoki took her to a vacation on Earth in the metaspace, to celebrate Mayumi's new life. The breeze slipping through their palms, and the sun baking their skin. These sensations felt very real. Mayumi never expected that she could go on an outing in space. They stopped at a shrine to pay their respects. Mayumi looked at the familiar street, and recalled a stranger who felt oddly familiar. It seemed she had met someone important here. The red-haired girl was named Gia. Naoki suddenly appeared, interrupting her thoughts. They returned to their former home, although the furniture had been cleared out, but Mayumi still remembered the arrangement of everything. At that moment, it suddenly started raining outside. Mayumi and Naoki dashed into the rain, playing and laughing, a familiar feeling stimulating her once again. Mayumi couldn't help but think of Gia. She remembered how Gia had touched her, and the look in her eyes during the rain. Mayumi spoke that name aloud. Naoki was struck as if by lightning upon hearing it. After so many adjustments, why could Mayumi still not forget that person? He looked at his wife's confused expression. Naoki interrupted what Mayumi was want to say. He pulled her into the elevator. Naoki reminded her to hold onto the handrail. As the machine ascended, the weightless phenomenon occurred. A ring floated in midair. This indicated that Naoki had also brought other Mayumis here before. They entered the observation room, which was in a state of free fall. They gazed at Earth through the glass.
これからずっと君はここにいる。
ここにはいられない。
Mayumi knew that her relationship with Gia was special, although she was initially uncertain. After seeing Naoki's eyes, Mayumi immediately realized she had betrayed their marriage. Mayumi felt that this was unfair to Naoki. If her love had changed, she couldn't pretend that everything was fine to deceive her husband.
直樹の人生のすべてにはなれない。分かってくれる。
Hearing these, Naoki embraced his wife. In the next moment, he snapped her neck. Naoki held the defective good tightly and wept. It turned out that shortly after they fell in love, Mayumi had an affair. She didn't want to hold her husband back, so Mayumi suggested breaking up. Naoki hurt Mayumi angrily. He sensed that she had fallen in love with someone else. Naoki caught her in the act of infidelity one afternoon. That day, Clair de Lune was playing in the pottery studio, and they argued about it. Now, the new robot had also been discarded. Naoki could go back to the doctor for help. This time, he required the version of them from their first meeting, erasing all memories afterward. Their wedding, honeymoon, and 6 years, all could be erased, so long as Mayumi forgot about the third party.
今回もうまくいかなかったらどうするおつもりですか？うまくいきますよ。俺がそうさせます。
Not long after, the new product was delivered again. This version of Mayumi had a bad temper. After all, she had just woken up. and found herself confined by a stranger. Regardless, the situation was a bit terrifying. Naoki was confident to prove to Mayumi that they could fall in love again, but Mayumi couldn't understand why he wanted to awaken her pre-marriage self. Logically, if a spouse dies, shouldn't he awaken the version with the most complete memories? Naoki, what a glib guy. He had excellent persuasion skills. He said, "I believe we will fall in love again, and I hope you make this decision. Don't feel this is a burden. If after a few days you still want to leave, I won't stop you from pursuing happiness." Given how things had developed, Mayumi could only try to get along with Naoki. However, on the first night, she couldn't sleep. Mayumi didn't sleep until dawn. She got up and sat in front of the vanity mirror, preparing to grab a comb. She saw a note that noticed, "Naoki will kill you." At that moment, the master of the house arrived. Naoki walked into the dressing room to get his cufflinks. He casually told Mayumi that he had a meeting and would be home late today. Mayumi calmly saw him off. In fact, she felt a sense of panic inside. Mayumi could only seek help from Kiku. She wondered if there was a way to escape. Kiku had a directive to protect her mistress, which was input when Naoki and Mayumi were passionately in love. So Kiku took Mayumi to a secret room. The person who wrote the note was hiding here. They were all the defective Mayumis. It turned out that Kiku hadn't disposed of the defective goods, but had secretly preserved them. However, the chips that formed Mayumi's personality had been split and shattered by Naoki. Only the new Mayumi was intact. After all, they were all part of a whole. So if one could escape, it would be worth it. But how could they escape this place? At that moment, the sound of disinfection came from the airlock. Kiku usually received packages through the airlock. He was also responsible for arranging deliveries. This meant that Kiku could get a transport ship from Earth. They could leave together. But before that, Mayumi hoped everyone would share their memories with her. Time back to after that argument, when Naoki had repeatedly abused Mayumi. Each time he apologized, Naoki still showed no remorse. Mayumi was unwilling to continue bearing this. Covered in bruises, Mayumi paid the price for her infidelity, so she packed her bags and planned to move out. That night, it rained heavily, and Mayumi stood by the roadside waiting for a taxi. Naoki chased after her with a knife, his emotions running high. Having experienced domestic violence, Mayumi stepped back in fear. Naoki was infuriated by her reaction. He dropped the knife and ran toward to grab her, pushed Mayumi off the bridge, and her head was smashed against the rocks. In a panic, Naoki rushed under the bridge. He held Mayumi's lifeless body and wept, the truth of the matter finally revealing. Naoki was a passionate yet violent man. That night, when Naoki finished work and back to home, he found Mayumi cooking chicken soup in the kitchen. He immediately realized that this was an imposter, because she resembled the version of Mayumi he had first met. She hadn't conned he liked chicken soup. Naoki brushed Mayumi's hair aside, and saw the wound on her neck. Version 1.0 of Mayumi pushed Naoki away and ran, while he chased her with a knife. Mayumi ran into the planting chamber, and heard Naoki's footsteps, so she shouted chicken soup. The planting chamber was highly intelligent. So long as a dish name was called out, the necessary ingredients would light up one by one. Mayumi used this to divert Naoki's attention, and seized the opportunity to escape to the tomato greenhouse. Mayumi deliberately revealed herself to attract Naoki, and then pressed the spray system button. Mayumi hurriedly fled. Naoki was furious, and kicked open the glass door. Mayumi stumbled upon several sharp tools, and prepared to run. However, she was quickly intercepted by Naoki. Mayumi threw the tools at him with all her might, but each time they missed their target, because Mayumi was just a robot, bound by predetermined rules. She could never harm a human. Naoki strode forward, and knocked down version 1.0 of Mayumi. Naoki used the knife to scrap her. Then Naoki entered the elevator, intending to confront the new version of Mayumi. But soon, Mayumi sensed he was getting closer. She instructed Kiku to stop the elevator. Naoki directly opened the emergency passage, and planned to climb up the elevator shaft. After arranging all versions of herself, Mayumi heard the alarm sound from the elevator shaft. She quickly grabbed a weapon, and then closed the gate. She planned to confront Naoki alone. He quickly opened the door and climbed in, holding a knife. Naoki lunged at her, but Kiku rushed over and struck him down. Mayumi seized the opportunity to hide in the shadows. Naoki searched for his prey, breathing heavily, like a beast. Soon, he discovered Mayumi. At a critical moment, Naoki squeezed through the door crack, and forcibly pried it open. Then Naoki charged over, and yanked Mayumi's hair, throwing her to the ground. Finally, Kiku stood in front of Mayumi, because its mission was to protect her. Naoki slammed Kiku to the ground, angrily cursing the defective good. She wasn't even the real Mayumi. A protector must recognize their target. At that moment, an electronic alert sounded, indicating that the transport ship was about to arrive. Everyone needs to evacuate the airlock. Naoki was puzzled. He hadn't ordered anything, so why was a transport ship approaching? In the next moment, the airlock door opened, and several Mayumis seized Naoki. The new version of Mayumi picked up the knife from the ground, and stabbed it directly into Naoki's heart. Mayumi possessed all the memories, and had regained her own personality. They surrounded the pathetic man. He still doesn't understand that Mayumi is not a perfect wife. She is, first and foremost, an independent individual, who has flaws and makes mistakes. In the end, Mayumi boards the transport ship and leaves, while Naoki is abandoned in space. He lost Mayumi's love, and could never be whole again. The film ends here, Naoki even turning his wife into a robot for regaining a happy life. The entire film showcases Naoki's experiences of repeatedly changing his wife in pursuit of ideal love, as well as Mayumi's awakening. The film lacks originality, and surprisingly runs for 2 hours. If it were placed in Tales of the Unusual, it could at most be turned into a 30-minute short episode. The biggest highlight of this film is probably Yuko Araki's beautiful face,